Hey, what's up guys? I'm BTC. Today I want to talk a little bit more about the fact that one-trick mains in Overwatch are getting banned. Now, there has been a lot of confusion about this, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that Blizzard is simply not being entirely consistent on what is and is not reportable, what is and is not a bannable offense, and also just what exactly is going on with a lot of these different examples that have come to light. So when it comes to these one-tricks, basically you have two different groups of people. On the one hand, you have the group of people who say, well, you spent, $60 for this game, and therefore you should be able to play anything you want, it doesn't matter, you paid for the game, you can play whatever character you want. And then on the other hand, you have the other group which says, well, you can do that in quick play and arcade, but in competitive, you are there to win. And more importantly, when you're in the competitive ladder, you are also functioning as a member of a team. It's not just a free-for-all thing. You are a member of a team, and you and everybody else have to work together for the betterment of that team so that you can actually win. So if you refuse to cooperate or you refuse to switch, then basically you are violating this poor teamwork rule. So you have those two groups. So either it's completely okay because you paid for the game, or no, it's not okay because you have to work as a team. And that's a perfectly valid discussion to have, but that's not the one that needs to be had right now. What needs to be addressed is the fact that Blizzard in the game itself, when you go to the reporting function, it says very clearly that you cannot report someone for simply playing a character that you do not think is optimal, whether it's optimal in the meta or optimal in that particular game. You cannot report someone for simply playing a particular character. And Blizzard on their forums and on Twitter and on other resources have explicitly said on many occasions that you cannot report someone and that someone should not be banned for simply playing a character. However, they are now coming up with this very contradictory statement where if you don't change your character, if you refuse to cooperate and play what the rest of your team wants you to play, then you can in fact be reported. That is a valid report, and it is a bannable offense. So you have these two completely different, conflicting statements from Blizzard, and that is the main problem that needs to be addressed. Now, every now and again, we have these people that pop up on the forums who say, I was banned for only playing Torbjorn, or Symmetra, or Bastion, or whatever it happens to be, right? I only played this character, I didn't do anything wrong, and I was banned for it. And then some further investigation is done, and as it turns out, well, no, that person actually probably did some other stuff that was kind of garbage and, not really on the whole up and up, and probably did deserve a suspension. But then we come to the most recent case, which is Fuey500. He is a top 500 Torbjorn one-trick. And upon a lot of investigation by myself and a lot of other people who have been looking into it, there doesn't seem to be anything that Fuey500 has done that warrants an actual ban or suspension from the game. There's no evidence of him being toxic, harassing other players, throwing matches, going AFK, or trolling in any way. In fact, it's the exact opposite. This guy seems to always be cheerful, upbeat, helpful. He's talkative and communicative with his team. Aside from the whole, the Torbjorn one-trick thing, this is the kind of guy that most people would actually want to have on their team because he brings this kind of positive attitude to the team that he's on, and he definitely tries his absolute best every single match, and there's absolutely no evidence that he has done anything wrong. So in the immortal words of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, whenever you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. So what's the truth? Fuey500 was reported and banned for simply playing Torbjorn. Now, Blizzard has responded to this entire situation with not just Fuey, but with other people, but unfortunately, Blizzard's responses have not cleared up anything. In fact, it's done the opposite. It's actually made it even more confusing. So an email from a Blizzard customer rep to a different player explained that the reason why they were banned was not because of it was a one-trick, was because that it was, quote, disruptive behavior. And disruptive behavior was defined as not switching when your teammates demand you to switch. And then on Twitter, another person from Blizzard on their social media team, probably it looks like, said, to be clear, specializing in certain heroes or playing off-meta heroes is not bad behavior on its own. Again, re-emphasizing that you can play Torbjorn on attack, but if your teammates ask you to switch and you don't, then that is considered bad behavior. So as long as your teammates are okay with you playing Torbjorn or Symmetra or Bastion or whatever the, the quote off-meta bad characters are, then if your team is okay with it, then it's fine. But if they ask you to switch and you refuse, then that is considered intent to be disruptive. Now that to me just sounds like a toxic Pandora's box of stupidity that you do not ever want to open. If Blizzard is going to say that toxic or disruptive behavior is defined as you not giving into the demands of your teammates, then that is a very, very bad situation to be in. And here's something that I really need to emphasize. This does not affect only one-tricks. This can affect pretty much anyone. So let's say, for example, right now, Mercy is incredibly popular. Resurrect is a very strong ability. But there's still a lot of healers out there who would rather play Ana or Zenyatta. Well, what Blizzard is essentially saying is that if you get into a game and you're playing Ana, and several of your teammates say, hey, it's fine that you're playing Ana, but we need you to switch to Mercy because she's a better character. If you as the Ana player refuse to switch to Mercy, that is, by Blizzard's own rules, they're kind of like their little standard that they're making right now, that is considered disruptive behavior because you're not giving in to the requests of your teammates. Again, that is not a situation that is going to be very helpful or healthy for this game. And there are lots of other examples too, like what if you have, let's say, a Tracer on your team, and someone on the enemy team switches to Winston? Does that give you and your team the authority to now demand that the Tracer switch to something else? Because what Blizzard looks like they're saying is that if your team makes the request that you switch off of the character and you refuse, then that is a reportable offense. But the thing is, it may not be necessary for that Tracer to switch. Yes, sure, Winston is a counter to Tracer, but there's a lot of times when the Winston might not be very good or simply not effective, and the Tracer can still do whatever they want and still be effective. Other cases are maybe if you have a Pharah on your team and the enemy team decides to get a couple of hit scans. Is it probably a good idea for your Pharah to switch off? Yeah, most likely. But there are also going to be times when the enemy people who are using the hit scan are just terrible and can't deal with the Pharah anyways. In which case, the Pharah can keep playing Pharah and still be effective. I have been in a game where a master ranked McCree player failed to get a single elimination on an enemy Pharah over the course of several rounds. Like, this guy couldn't hit the Pharah for the life of him. So just because we have the hit scan doesn't mean that the enemy Pharah was automatically countered. But again, what Blizzard seems to be indicating is that you have the authority to make demands of your teammates, and if they don't, then you can have a report on them and it is going to be considered valid. So whether or not you think one-tricks are good or bad, whether they should be allowed or prohibited, all of that doesn't really matter right this second. What needs to be addressed is the fact that Blizzard is not consistent on their policy of dealing with this. And also, I think it's very dangerous ground to give the players the ability to report someone because they simply refuse to change to what you want them to change to. Now, another thing of pretty great concern is the fact that it seems like the bans that were issued to Fuey and all the other people were done so automatically. So even though Blizzard has explicitly told us in the past that there will be human review for all of these suspensions, as it turns out, that doesn't seem to be the case, in that all of these players were in fact banned, suspended automatically, simply because they were reported a very large number of times. So this is another issue that definitely needs to be addressed. Any automatic system, as we can clearly see in the case of Fuey500, can easily be exploited and abused, and that definitely is also really bad for the game and for just the entire Overwatch community. So what do you guys think about all this stuff? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to check out my Discord server and follow me on Twitter. The links for that stuff is down below. Thanks very much for watching. Remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this all possible. If you'd like to see what kind of cool rewards you can get for supporting the channel, check the links on screen and down below.